It's Debatable with Mark Gray here on MLBBro.com.
All right, man, Ram. Seems like you got a bit of a beef with what went down with the Braves and the treatment of Ronald Acuna. All players of color now are facing a double standard when it comes to perception versus reality.
Absolutely. I think players of colors have always been judged unfairly. Let's call it what it is. This is what we do here on this show. There's always been a double standard in baseball. Players of color, when they're exuberant, when they got a little swag, when they prance around. And when I say players of color, obviously what we do here cover black players, but also Afro-Latino players, Latino players as a whole, right? People of color are judged differently. When white players celebrate, when they're exuberant, oh, he plays with his hair on fire. You know, he's a gamer. A brother, a Latino brother, whoever, oh, he plays with a little sauce. Oh, he's going to get other teams riled up. There's always been a double standard. What bothered me so much about the Ronald Acuna situation was the Braves went out of their way to make that situation so public.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they were wrong.
No, it should have stayed in-house, though.
It should have stayed in-house. The issue I have is that when you go out of your way to make something like that, when you make an example out of one of your best players, one of the best players in the world, then you have to be consistent with that. And it's even more egregious when it's a player of the caliber of a Jared Kelenic, a player who, let's be honest, much ballyhooed prospect who's done nothing in Major League Baseball, and you completely give that kid a pass. And then the response by Snitker, and who I like, who's a good manager, and he's a good guy. I don't think this is, and we're not calling Snitker a racist, or we're saying the Braves, we're not saying any of that. But what I'm saying is, when he's asked post-game, oh, well, I have to see it, and I didn't. What are you talking about? You got to see it. You was on the field. You're the manager. Like it was just such an asinine response, and the coverage. And then you got Jeff Francoeur and other Braves people kind of actively going out of their way to bury Acuna. I just think this whole thing was just messy, and it's not even about the Braves. It's not even about that isolated incident itself. It's just a larger culture of baseball players and the baseball media covering black and brown players differently than white players.
Not only is there a double standard, but sometimes, and I want to believe in this particular case, this was a gross oversight. But if you're in Acuna's shoes, you've been around long enough. Don't you keep that in-house? Do you really want that kind of shade, especially in a time when social media is out there? Now, I'm pro freedom of speech and all of that, but could you rally the troops inside the clubhouse, and quite frankly, with the demographics of that clubhouse, it probably would have been a tough sell.
Absolutely. No, you're not wrong, OG. Acuna handled it poorly, but I don't even think it's about Acuna. I think it's about highlighting the issues that we are talking about, which is a double standard. I mean, there was a lot written in on the offseason about Jazz Chisholm and his time with the Marlins and how his beef with Miguel Rojas and how people on the Marlins hated Jazz Chisholm. We've seen it throughout history recently with Tim Anderson and some of the issues he's had in different clubhouses. And I'm not taking away the culpability from players themselves. Like maybe Tim Anderson did some things that rub people the wrong way, Jazz, etc. I'm not saying Acuna's an angel or a saint, but I just think that perception is reality. And there's a perception around the sport that players of color are, when they act a certain way or when they're overly exuberant or when they don't play the right way, it's a bad thing. But when white players do it, I think that we need to call attention to that BS and not let this thing continue to fester and continue to be something more than what it needs to be.
Players of color seem to be always under a microscope, and it still continues today. That's Debatable for this week. For the Man Ram, I'm the OG. Holla back.
For more right now, go to MLBBro.com.